Oppo has a new premium camera phone. I'm talking about the Find X8 Pro. It brings cutting-edge camera tech and is available worldwide. So is it worth your cold hard cash? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's find out in our Oppo Find X8 Pro review. The Find X series phones are known for their camera prowess, and the X8 Pro introduces something interesting. Not just one, but two periscope telephoto cameras. You also get other high-end features here, like extra ingress protection, an LTPO OLED display, and the latest flagship chipset. Oppo has taken measures to make the round camera bump thinner and not protrude as much. It still dominates the rear design though. The front and back of the phone are made of Gorilla Glass 7i, and they're flat, but have micro curves at the edges to meet the aluminum frame. You'll find an alert slider on the side of the phone, so on the fly you can silence it or let it ring. And the phone has extra ingress protection. On top of the IP68 protection against dust and water submersion, it's IP69 against jets of heated water, for peace of mind at the jacuzzi. The display of the phone is a 6.78-inch LTPO OLED with a high resolution and a 120Hz refresh rate. For brightness, we maxed out at around 900 nits with the manual slider and got to over 1300 nits in auto mode. Not as bright as some competitors, but still plenty for good outdoor legibility. And the display looks great. It's plenty sharp with a pixel density of 450 ppi, and it also has support for the HDR10 Plus and Dolby Vision video standards. The screen's high refresh rate makes it quite smooth when scrolling around, and since it uses LTPO tech, it's extra adaptive, able to dial down as low as 1 Hz when idling to save energy. There's no support for high frame rate gaming here though. We couldn't get any game to run in over 60 FPS. For audio, the Oppo Find X8 Pro has a pair of stereo speakers with very good loudness. The quality is quite good too. Let's have a listen.
I'm wide awake, but you're a nightmare.
Under the display sits an optical fingerprint scanner for biometrics. It's fast and reliable. And you can get the Oppo Find X8 Pro with 256 or 512 gigs or a terabyte of storage on board. That isn't expandable through microSD. The interface of the phone is Oppo's new ColorOS 15 running on top of Android 15. Besides a bit of a visual refresh, it's very similar to what we've seen before from Oppo, OnePlus, and Realme. Oppo isn't getting left behind when it comes to AI-based features. Besides photo editing tools, which we've seen before, there are a few new ones. You can find many of them in the smart sidebar. They're context sensitive though, and show up if the scenario would call for it. AI Summary can condense a text into key points. AI Speak will read a text out loud, and AI Writer can write text for you. The AI Studio app uses generative AI to create images of you in different styles, based on a photo of yourself. Also, Google's Circle to Search comes built into the phone, as is Google Gemini, the AI-powered virtual assistant. And Oppo promises 5 OS updates and 6 years of security patches here, which is a nice step up from their previous models. High-end phones are starting to come out with a new generation of flagship silicon, and that's what you'll find on board the Find X8 Pro. However, this isn't a Qualcomm chip, it's MediaTek's Dimensity 9400, built on a 3nm process. In benchmarks, the numbers are a significant bump over the previous generation, as you'd expect. And when compared to phones running on a Snapdragon 8 Elite, it's about on par. The performance here is every bit next-gen. Our only gripe when it comes to gaming is one I've already mentioned. There's no support for anything above 60 FPS. When it comes to thermal management, the Find X8 Pro does only a decent job. There was a gradual decrease in performance during our prolonged stress tests, with the phone eventually throttling to about 60% of maximum. The Find X8 Pro is powered by a pretty large 5,910 mAh battery. The results in our battery tests were very good. The phone earned an active use score of 15 hours and 18 minutes in our tests, with solid screen-on times. The Find X8 Pro supports 80-watt charging, and the charger comes bundled with the phone. With it, we were able to charge from 0 to 70% in half an hour, and a full charge took 53 minutes. Decently speedy, but far from blazing fast. There's also support for fast wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. Finally, we're onto the cameras. There's a 50-megapixel main cam, a 50-megapixel ultrawide camera, and two 50-megapixel periscope telephoto cameras, one for 3x zoom and one for 6x. The main cam is missing the 1-inch type sensor that we've seen on previous Find X models, perhaps to make room for a rumored X8 Ultra in the works. Just as we saw in the latest iPhones, the Find X8 Pro has a dedicated hardware key for controlling the camera's width. It's called the quick button. With it, you can launch the camera, zoom, take a photo, and even do some burst shooting. And while it doesn't click like a button, it has haptic feedback, which is nice. During the day, the main cam captures very good images with abundant detail, rendered nicely. Exposures are on point, and dynamic range is great too. Color saturation is also well judged, though the white balance does trend a bit greenish. This is apparent in people shots, which we prefer to come out warmer. Still, it's not too bad and can be tweaked after the fact. At night, the main camera does a wonderful job. It captures well-exposed images with wide dynamic range, excellent shadow development, and good highlight preservation. The detail rendition is very natural, without over-sharpening, and colors are likable too. Moving on to the shorter 3x telephoto. It produces clean and sharp photos, though the processing of detail is just slightly too digital. White balance is once again a little bit off, but at least it matches the main camera, and the color saturation is good. You can't use this camera for extreme close-ups, but people shots are quite great at 3x. The shooting distance offers a nice perspective and flattering facial proportions. At night, the 3x shots have very good detail and it's looking nicely organic too. Dynamic range is excellent and colors are pleasant. During the day, 6x zoom shots are decent, but there's a bit of a general haziness and glow to these shots. They're not the sharpest, in particular when there's a lot of bright light in the frame. Colors are still pretty great. The longer telephoto cam does a good job with close-ups. We measured the minimum focusing distance at about 29 centimeters. 6x zoom shots in low light may come from this camera, or it could be a digital zoom from the 3x camera. The ones without the digital crop have decent sharpness, but some graininess. The dynamic range is great, and colors are hard to fault. And now the ultrawide cam. In broad daylight, its photos come out with excellent sharpness and detail, and no noise. Dynamic range is nicely wide, and color reproduction is quite pleasing. At night, the ultrawide does a respectable job. Its images have good detail, dynamic range is excellent, and colors are generally on point. Selfies come from a 32 megapixel front-facing cam, and they aren't overly exciting considering that this is a camera phone. There's no autofocus, and the detail isn't what you'd expect at this resolution. The Find X8 Pro records video in up to 4K resolution at 60 FPS with all of its cameras, including in Dolby Vision. 4K video quality from the main camera is great, with wide dynamic range, accurate white balance, and vibrant colors. Detail is very good too. The 3x telephoto cam captures nicely detailed videos during the day. The 6x zoom is almost as good, though it does have some of that haziness we mentioned in the stills. The ultrawide's footage is slightly noisy in the shadows, but it's still solid overall. At night, the main camera produces very good results, with a nice balance between noise reduction and detail. And video stabilization is good overall, with only some imperfections on the main camera when walking. So that's the Oppo Find X8 Pro. It's a solid all-around flagship camera phone with a powerful next-gen chipset, great battery life, and a versatile high-end camera experience. The flaws here are minor. There's no support for high frame rate gaming, and there are other phones with a better selfie camera. But if those don't concern you, then the Oppo Find X8 Pro is a camera phone that's definitely worth considering. Thanks for watching, guys. Here are a couple of camera-centric alternatives on our channel, the Vivo X200 Pro and the Galaxy S24 Ultra. Let us know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.